Front Desk, Chapter 60. Mom! I raced up the stairs 2 at a time. My parents were in the middle of cleaning room 22. My mother was holding Windex in one hand and Lysol in the other. Mom! Dad, guess what? I won a writing contest at school, I exclaimed. Are you serious? My mom asked. When did this happen? Today, I said, handing her my coupon for Pizza Hut. My dad beamed. He put the vacuum cleaner down, took me into his arms, and spun me around. What I tell you, you win some and you lose some, he exclaimed. I grinned. Lupe's coming over, I said to my mom. Will you take us to Pizza Hut? Will I ever, my mom said, tossing her Lysol and Windex to the side. I laughed. Ever since I could remember, my mom had been asking my dad to take her out to eat, but of course, we could never afford it. And now we could finally go. We didn't even need to carry a fake shopping bag. The pizza at Pizza Hut was bubbling hot. My mouth watered before I even tasted it, just from the smell wafting toward us from the kitchen. Lupe dug into hers, smiling as she devoured the cheese. This is so good, Lupe said. I put a slice onto my mom's plate. She took a bite and purred. It was almost enough just watching the two of them. I was so happy. I looked around the room, thinking of all the times I'd walked by this place, peering through the windows, wondering what it was like to sit in one of the booths. Mia, you gotta taste this, my mom pointed to my slice. I took a bite and felt the soft dough melt in my mouth. I'd had pizza before at school, but not like this. I closed my eyes, savoring every morsel of cheese and pepperoni. It was heavenly. My mother looked at me and said, I'm so proud of you. Not bad for a bicycle, right? I asked with a grin. I couldn't resist. My mom put the pizza down and turned to me. You're not a bicycle, she said. The truth is, I'm the bicycle. Mom, you're not. Yes, I am. You see how my English is? My English is terrible. I thought about the stupid woman who made fun of my mom's pronunciation. You say eggplant. Who cares? My mom shook her head. It's not only that, it's everything. She looked down at the ground, then back up at me. Math, I could help you with, but Mia, I cannot help you with English. I finally understood why my mother had been saying all these things. She didn't want to hurt me. She wanted to help me, and she couldn't with English. That's why she was constantly pushing me to do math. I wanted to say to her, Mom, have faith in me. I can do it on my own. I figured the front desk out on my own, didn't I? Don't worry, Mom, I said to her. You don't have to always help me. I can do it. My mom didn't say anything for a long time. Then she smiled. Clearly you can, she said. That afternoon, as we inhaled slice after slice of deliciousness, my mom asked Lupe about her family in Mexico. We left when I was very little, and I don't get to see them very often, Lupe said. Why don't you go back and visit? I mean, since it's so close, I said. I would go back every day if China were right there. Lupe shrugged. My mom says every time we go, we have to buy so many presents for everyone. I have 11 cousins, and that's just on my mom's side, Lupe said. On my dad's side, I have, let's see. Lupe counted on her fingers. 7, she announced. You must miss them so much, my mom said, glancing at me. Sometimes, she said, but they all think America's this super rich place where everyone just plays golf all day and drives around in a Cadillac. My mother laughed. It's the same with my siblings, my mom said. I think they get that from the movies. Lupe sighed. I wish there was a movie that told them what it's really like, Lupe said. My mom shook her head. No way, my mom said. That would be so embarrassing. Lupe reached for another slice. This is really nice, by the way, Lupe said, looking at me. Thanks for inviting me. I smiled back at her. There was nobody in the world I'd rather share this with. Well, except... Hey, should we save some for Dad? I asked. I bet he'd never tasted anything like this before. Real pizza, not the frozen kind from the grocery store. Against our stomach's loud protests, I put my slice down, and so did my mother. She raised her hand for a to-go box. Back at the motel, we found my dad in the kitchen making himself some rice and cabbage. "Forget the cabbage," my mom said with a smile as she handed him the pizza box. "Look what your daughter brought you." My dad huffed and puffed about how we didn't have to do that, but I could tell he was secretly glad we did. As he bit into the pizza, he closed his eyes and moaned. Chapter 61. The kind people at Pizza Hut let me keep my coupon as a souvenir. Carefully, I taped it up next to the front desk so I could look at it every day while I worked. I wished I could tell my cousin Shen about it. The whole time Lupe was talking about her cousins in Mexico, I was thinking about Shen. There was this restaurant that Shen and I would always walk by on our way to school. It was a fancy Western restaurant, the only one in town, and naturally, it was way too expensive. Every time we walked by it, Shen and I would talk about what it would be like to one day go in there when we were growing up and order whatever we wanted. If Shen knew that today I'd gone to Pizza Hut, and for free too, he'd be so proud of me. I smiled at the thought. I pulled out a piece of paper and started writing him a letter. If my mom didn't want to tell his mom anything about her, fine, but I just had to tell Shen. It'd been a while since I last wrote. The last letter was before we started working for Mr. Yao. I wrote quickly, scribbling away about Lupe and Hank and Mr. Yao. I wrote about the car theft and the crazy security guard and freeing Uncle Zhang. I wrote about school and Jason, who wasn't quite so bad anymore, even though he still had my pencil. I told him about the essay contest and how I didn't win, but that Lupe and I were going to figure out another way to get off the roller coaster together. Finally, I told him about Mrs. Douglas and my writing, how it'd gone from 12 exclamation marks bad to 4 exclamation marks good. I even drew a picture of the Pizza Hut coupon so he could see for himself. In my neatest handwriting, I copied down all the words on the coupon, including the little expiration date at the bottom, so he would know exactly what it looked like. It was nearly done when the mailman came. "Can you wait just a second?" I begged the mailman. "I want to mail this letter to my cousin in China, and I just need to get the address from my parents. It'll just take a second." "Did you say China?" he asked. He poked around in his big sack of letters and produced an envelope. "Looks like you just got something from there today." I peered at the letter in my hands. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the addressee. It was from Shen. "Thank you so much," I told the mailman. I was so excited I forgot all about mailing my own letter to Shen and tore open his letter to me. The mailman chuckled as he left. It was a very long letter, 5 pages long to be exact. It was extremely detailed, and Shen even separated it into sections. There was a section on school, a section on neighborhood, and a section on our family. Typical him, he was always super organized. I raced through the letter, gulping it down as quickly as I could. I giggled at Shen's description of his new teacher, Mr. Wang, and how he couldn't sneeze without farting at the same time. He told me all about the new kids in his class, many of whom were from the outskirts of the city. The entire neighborhood was changing all throughout the city. People were starting to buy up property. The government was tearing down the old brick buildings to make room for new high-rises. When I got to the section on family, though, my eyes did a double take. "We recently moved to an apartment by the river because it's bigger. After you guys left, my dad was made head of the department at his job. Long story short, the job came with a much bigger apartment. I no longer have to share with my parents. Now I have my own room. Oh, and we also got a car. Nothing like what you guys have in America, I'm sure, but it's pretty great. Last weekend, we went to Beijing and walked around the Great Wall. We had lunch at a brand new Peking duck restaurant. It was really fancy. Do they have Peking duck in America?" Over and over I read the words, new apartment, own room, car. I looked down at my own letter on the table, at my handwriting, which a minute ago looked neat and now looked puny. Slowly, I reread my words, how I'd gone on and on about the poor roller coaster and my pencil, my excitement of finally going to an American restaurant, how my stomach growled when I made myself put the pizza back so I could save some for my dad. The more I read, the more my fingers stiffened. Suddenly, I didn't feel like sending my letter anymore. With my hands heavy as rocks, I took my letter and Shen's letter and walked over to my closet. I stuffed them both way in the back, together with my C- story and the rejection letter from the essay contest. Was it true? Was Shen rich now? The wild thought bounced around in my head as I tossed and turned. My lips formed around the word rich. Rich. It was like a passcode to a different galaxy, and now Shen was part of the galaxy, and I wasn't. Could it be that while our life had gotten so hard, his life had gotten so much easier? The thought was so painful to hear I couldn't stand it. I rushed to lick my wounds. Shen may have his own room now, but I was pretty sure he still didn't have a bathroom with a shower. He still had to go to the neighborhood bathhouse. And his dad may have gotten a good job, but they'd still never flown in an airplane and never stayed in a hotel before. With every never, I felt my panic subside. Later, when I could finally breathe again, guilt cut into me like a harsh fluorescent front office lights. How could I feel this way about my own cousin? He was family. If he was doing well, I should be happy for him. I should be proud of him, because after all, if his family was rich now, didn't that mean— I sat up in bed. Mom!